Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all my blessed beloveds out there in video land. You're watching Living and Thriving with Rusty, and I'm Rusty. I'm struggling with, there it is, yay. My video is having a little bit of an issue today. Can you believe that? No way, technological issues? Oh my gosh, it's such a thing. I'm uber excited to re-invite Ben on to talk about expectations. We've chatted before, and it was really quite the way the universe works. Within 2 days before I received another email from Ben, somebody was actually watching our show and emailed me asking questions. And then he emails me going, hey, let's do this again. And I'm like, sure, why not? We have questions. What do you think about that, Ben? It was literally 2 days before you emailed me.
Must be divine intervention
Well, and
or
that's what,
something.
isn't that, I mean, I love this. I love this process because it's so universal and it's working. My little mad scientist brain is actually working. Pinky, we're going to take over the world.
I like it.
So for those who are just joining us for the first time, I'm spoiled because we've chatted before in the past and had a great time. Explain to them who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Ben Winter, and I'm an author of several self help books, one of which is called What to Expect When Having Expectations. And I like to explore the mind and where things are and why people think what they think. So um, mostly because I want to know what the hell I'm thinking most of the time, but it helps me understand other people as well so that we can communicate better on this planet.
Do you think that we fail on a lot of levels with communication and trying to understand each other?
Absolutely. I think in today's day and age, we have the best technology we've ever had in our entire existence, and we're the absolute worst at communication now. Now, I don't know what communication was like several hundred years ago, but I'm guessing people sat down and actually talked to one another face to face because that was really the only way to do it. And now, you send a text message, and depending on who's reading it, the inflection of that text message can go any number of ways. And if you're not somebody who enjoys life, you're going to read it kind of in a negative way. But if you find everything to be fun and entertaining, you're going to read it in a positive way. And the same message could go. You just lose meaning. So we lose communication just by the fact that we use so much written communication these days.
And I love that segue because let me tell you a personal thing that happened to me and it drives me bananas. So customer service is so huge to me. I've been in marketing and sales. I've general managed, I've gone through the whole paradigm of career ladder climbing. Um, and I went to Planet Fitness last night. It's a new one to where we are. And they wanted me to download an app to check in because they're not going to be there to put my number in all the time, was the response. And I just kind of scratched my head and I'm going, but I don't want to download an app. I'm not addicted to my phone. Sometimes I actually leave my phone in the car so it doesn't bother me. That's why I go to the gym. Well, that's the way we work here. And so I'm scratching my head because, this is a different generation of people. You're closer to my age, so you probably rode your bike and skinned your knee and built forts and chased frogs and, did normal kid problem solving crazy stuff and maybe blew up things like I did. I did blow up a lot of things. But we weren't addicted to technology. We didn't even have a damn TV when I was growing up.
Mm.
I know, so weird, huh? But this
Good
new,
old days.
right? This new world is everywhere you go, you have to download an app or you have to go through the automatic cashier. And it's like we're disembodying what it is to be human.
For some of it, absolutely. And I don't know, like I This is where I struggle as an adult with trying to figure out the human mind and what's going on, because there are some things that I absolutely love. I love being able to self check out at the grocery store. I feel like I'm faster. Um, I could definitely go faster than the machines let me, but I get to put my groceries in the bags the way I want, because then when I get home, I know like I have a bag of frozen goods. I have a bag of like stuff that goes in the refrigerator. I have a bag I can just chuck in the pantry and not even think about it. Um, Whereas, when somebody else is kind of putting stuff in the bag, they just kind of throw it in, and then you got to sort it out when you get home. So, but that's my own little thing. I get there are people who are like, I didn't come here to bag my own bags. That's what you're here to do, and that's how they want to be. And so that's fine. I think having more choice is great, but at the same time, yeah, we don't let kids skin their knees anymore. Like, we don't send them outside, in every temperature possible, because now they can be inside and doing X, Y, and Z. It's a very interesting world we're in right now, and yeah, I don't. It becomes harder to communicate with everybody because of technology as well. So
I see every time that I go through the checkout and I actually engage with a cashier. I see my role as a human on this planet as an influencer or a farmer. My every waking moment is about planting seeds of hope and inspiration and motivation and encouraging and support. And I find that we're really detaching from what that beautiful humanness is. And we are starting to detach even from our physical being because we're so in our headspace. And the worst place you can be is in your head because it's like this labyrinth of shit, you know? And it's an interesting process to watch the world's kind of implode, I
yeah,
think.
well, and you're kind of hitting on it, because even like you can see a group of people sitting at a table together, and what are they doing? They're texting each other, or people that aren't even present there. It's like they're not engaged in that human connection right there in front of in front of the person. So, as technology grows, when are these going to turn into like a screen where I'm not even paying attention to what's in front of me? I'm like scrolling through stuff on in my glasses. That technology is there. It's just not widely there. And it's just another level of uh, detachment from humanity. So I get it.
Yeah, it always makes you wonder about Wrinkle in Time and Matrix and 1984. Like these were great things that people concocted in their brain and they wrote about them and shared them, and now we're kind of living them.
Yeah, and it's just going to keep getting weirder and weirder. Some for good, some for not. It just depends.
So let's go into expectations. You and I had a really lengthy conversation before about expectations, and so you already know where my head's at in that topic. Talk to the audience for the new people a little bit about your book, why you wrote your book, and what your feelings are about expectations.
Sure. So I've been doing improv for a very long time, and throughout that process, I started teaching it. And one of the things that I kept coming across when teaching one of the rules of expectations is around expectation, or one of the rules of improv. I came across this thing about expectations, and I kept saying in these trainings that the only reason anybody gets upset is because an expectation hasn't been met. And I was like, okay, that's a really cool saying. I finally have a saying. I have a quote. I can put down a quote. Woo! But it doesn't solve anything. It just points out an obvious. And so I sat down with that obvious, interesting thing, and I said, okay, so how do I solve this? How do I solve this for myself? How do I solve this for others? And I came up with a fancy flow chart that kind of walks through the process of taking that moment in time when you're upset and kind of working through like, hey, did you even know you had this expectation, and kind of going from there. And I kept looking at this flow chart and I was like, okay, this kind of solves a lot of the problems, but there's some depth there that's not kind of obvious. Every time you say no to something, there's more depth. And so I had to write a book about it just to kind of keep it all together. So, when you realize that you didn't even know you had the expectation and that you need to sit there and explore it and where it came from, that information's in the book. It's not going to be there in the flow chart. And then, is the expectation reasonable? And when you say no to that, or have you shared your expectation and you say no to that, a lot of times we don't share our expectations out of fear. And, sometimes it's just, I'm so afraid to share this expectation with the other person because I don't want them to freak out. I don't want them to leave. I don't want them to like me less. And so it's just kind of, I built it backwards, I would say. Because most people will start with a book and then kind of go from there. But I started on the other end of realizing there was a problem and trying to find a way to solve it.
So give us an example of an expectation that most people wouldn't realize that they had until confronted with it.
The most obvious ones are relationship based. And a lot of times we don't even realize we have the expectation until we're in that relationship and it's going unmet. And those expectations of our partner, whoever that may be, stem from how we're raised or not raised, how we see the world and how we expect relationships to be. If you grow up in a broken household, you kind of grow up expecting that relationships don't really work out and you're ultimately going to break up. Or because you were in a broken household, you don't want that to happen when you're an adult. So when it starts to break down, you start to freak out a little bit. The opposite, sometimes you'll grow up with, a very strong relationship. And as an example, your parents are together, they're very happy, they put on a good show at least. And you grow up and that's what you expect in a relationship. So when things start going sideways, you kind of start freaking out. My parents were very good at hiding adult things from their kids. I didn't and that's fine. I get it. As a parent, you want to protect your child from the bad, but at the same time, if they don't see the bad, they can't see you work through it. So then when they grow up and see the bad, they don't know how to work through it either. They have to figure it out on their own. So I think as parents, sometimes we limit what our children see too much because then they don't learn how to handle it. So again, as an adult, when you're in a relationship, you're going to come across many different examples of, maybe your expectation of your partner is that you have the same love language and that, you're always doing stuff together. You cuddle on the couch when you watch TV, and then you're in that relationship and it stops being what you expect it to be. And you're like, okay, what's wrong? And so now you have to kind of explore, well, why do I have this expectation of the other person? Have I even shared that expectation with the other person? And if I haven't, how can they be expected to follow through on my expectation if I haven't shared with them? And it becomes that weird, it goes back to communication. We don't communicate our needs and wants to our partners most of the time. And then it becomes a problem and then we have to start exploring it.
I think with relationships, I'm really gifted with telepathically telling you what I want.
But are they gifted at receiving that information?
Yeah, no, I'm single.
So it's not working out so well.
Not working out. Nope.
Yeah. So oftentimes we all think it's like, isn't it obvious what I want? No, it's not. They grew up in a completely different world, a different idea. They don't have the same wants, needs, and desires that you do because they're a different person. So, you got to talk.
Yeah, and it's back to that whole app thing. Do we get an app so that we can communicate with our partner?
No.
Good answer.
I mean, maybe someday virtual reality will be at a place where you don't need the physical person there and it works out, but I'm guessing we're not there yet. So
I don't know. They have these really great, she-bots in Japan that they've been advertising. I don't know. This world is just kind of like leaving my humanness. I feel like I'm staying grounded in the earth, tree hugging, camping without a RV, old school. And everybody else is kind of being George Jetson and flying away. And I'm like, toodles, I'm good.
Hey, my camera battery just freaked out, but I'm still here. So I'm replacing the battery really quick.
That's okay. We're down to the wire anyway, so no worries.
That's fair. All right, I'm back. Yeah.
All right, cool. You're alive.
Wasn't expecting that to happen during this. Oh well.
I have grown to love not having expectations or trying to minimally have expectations because I find that um, a lot of wars are caused from expectations and a lot of divorces and just unwanted things.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that you can't not have expectations. It's one of those things where you're gonna have them. They are what they are. Um, and choosing not to have expectations is an expectation in and of itself. So it's more managing those expectations, and you know, it's sharing them. It's not being afraid of them. It's saying like, these are going to help empower me. These are going to help set those boundaries. These are going to help make the relationship stronger. And honestly, if you have an expectation of your partner and they're not willing to do it, and that's like a deal breaker, well, better to know that earlier than later. And that's why we have deal breakers when it comes to relationships. Those are expectations. I don't want to get in a relationship with somebody who smokes. It's not something that I want. And so if you want to be a smoker, then we're definitely not going to be together, period. It's simple, it's easy, there's no hardship there. I mean, we're not compatible, done. um, and it's easier to know that way up front before the feelings become really entrenched and attached and all that fun stuff. So the more expectations you can get up front, yeah, that kind of takes away from the fun of exploring somebody new, but at the same time, the big deal breakers, get them out of the way, and then it's smaller things as you get older.
Well, and I from personal experience of 17 years, I am a gypsy by nature. I'm a traveler. I love to explore. I like to break things and put them back together, and that's just me. And my ex-husband was all for it in the beginning, but he grew out of the idea of being adventurous and exploring and kayaking and camping, and so that put a huge rift in our relationship. How do you, and I see this as a very common theme in a lot of relationships where you kind of grow differently. Um, what do you think as far as expectations, or as far as you're exploring people, how they can kind of combat that gap?
Yeah, so I mean, in that situation, it becomes like, hey, I'm no longer, from his standpoint, is like, I'm not as into this stuff as I used to be, and maybe there's a reason. Maybe he had a bad experience. Maybe he's never been into it. Who knows? But that's where communication comes in, and a lot of times when two people have conflicting expectations, you've got to find that middle ground. It's called negotiation. So maybe it's him letting you go explore with different friends. Maybe it's he comes once every 3 or 4 times, not every time. Maybe it's you go less and hang out with him and do what he wants for a change. You have to kind of explore those expectations of one another. Now, if it's like, no, I need you there every single time, I don't want to go with anybody else, and if you're not going to be with me, then I'm going to go by myself. Well, maybe that's okay with him. Go by yourself. But if you're like, well, I want a partner that's going to be there with me, well, I don't want to go. Okay, well, yeah, maybe you're not, maybe you grew apart, and that's just it, and you're done. But sometimes you can come together and say, okay, I get you want to go do these things. Is there another group of friends you can do it with, so that I don't have to be the one expected to go every single time? And you're like, yeah, I've never thought about that. Like, I watch my parents. I don't feel like either one of them has like their separate group of friends. Now, they've been married for so long, I don't even know if that's possible. That's just my experience of them. But if my dad, on a monthly basis went and hung out with his friends, and on a monthly basis she went out and hung with her friends, and they did these things independent of one another, then it would be easier in my brain, having grown up seeing it's okay for a couple not to do everything together, because they want to go do their thing, they want to go do their thing. And sometimes that's just where relationships grow. Like, hey, I want to go do these other things that you're not interested in. Are you good with me going out and finding new friends to do these things with? And it creates new dialogue, new communication, and that's just kind of where it goes.
I love it. So dialogue, communication, and not being telepathic about your expectations.
Yeah, not unless you're both telepathic, and you
Then
can
I'll work on it.
There you go.
I'll put on the next dating app I go on, I'll put a little crystal ball. You need this in order to.
And you need to learn how to use it effectively.
Oh yeah, that too. God, I'm complicated.
That's why we have these little moving mouthpieces to help us out there.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you want to hear me. So Ben, how do we find out more information about you? And I hope that those who are watching, your questions were answered today. But Ben is always more than welcome to come on again. We have a good time when we're together chatting it up.
Yeah, so easiest way is to go to havingexpectations.com. You can get the flowchart, just download it for free, put it on your fridge, put it in your car, put it at work, as a constant reminder that, hey, it's okay to be upset as long as I do something about it. So,
all right, 3 things that you recommend, 1, 2, 3, for people to start doing today.
Go to the website, download the flowchart, print it out, and start using it. But I would say the biggest thing for people to do right now is just to recognize when you're upset that it's a great moment in time for growth, and just to know that there's something different at those moments in time is, I think, the only thing you really need to focus on right now.
How's the improv world now that we're kind of partial post-Rona?
Yeah, we actually, my improv troupe just got hired to do a show for a high school gala. So they didn't do a prom, they did a gala. So they had all kinds of different things going on. But we were up on stage. We had so much fun. It was clear that we were missing each other on stage because we were all over each other. It was great. It was still, PG. It was
yeah, okay.
it was high school. We weren't crazy.
The world's a changing, Ben. The world's a changing.
Yes, it is.
All right, my friend. Thank you for coming back on, and I look forward to watching you grow.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back.
Bye, honey. Talk to you soon.
Right. Bye.
You're watching Living and Thriving with Rusty, and I'm Rusty, and I get to do this. This is fun. This is cool. And I think everybody should try it. I think everybody should be a part of this journey, and learning about people and growing and learning about yourselves and your little quirks and things that make you tick. My personal one is I'm telepathic about everything. I think that you can read my mind. And it doesn't work. It just does not work. So I have to be better at verbalizing my needs and my wants and my dislikes. Try it. Anyway, know that you're beautiful. Know that you're loved. Know that doing good for somebody else actually can change their life in some way, some magical way. Be a fairy today. Go do something nice for somebody. Until then.